Dear students, welcome to my classroom of research methodology. Today I am going to give you some ideas on social construction of madness and mental health. My question is, what do you mean by madness? Are we all normal people? What is the definition of normalcy? What do you feel abnormal? So we need to understand these definitions, and all are trying to portray the same meaning, that is mental health or well-being of ourselves. This is something which is a psychosocial phenomena which is also a part of intellectual history, also a part of transforming history or transforming the civilizations, because the mad people are the genius. They made the changes because they have the power to think out of the box. So all the people who tried to change the society, who tried to revolutionize the society, the people, they were all regarded as insanes. So we need to understand the meaning of insanity. Insanity is a word which is very much intellectual. It's very much academic, and it's also related to the society. We feel tabooed to accept the people who are having some mental health issues. But have we ever thought that it's something which can be regarded as normal, because all of us are having some mental health disorders? Some of them are subtle, some of them are definitely visible. How can we situate mental health in the arena of academics to have a better understanding of the society? Here I would like to quote Freud, that what once he stated, the progress of human civilization is something which is related to the reflection of the human behavior which is unconscious. Or in other words, I may say, unconscious human behavior helps to change the society, helps to have the history. So when we talk on history, when we talk on history of insanity, when we think about the social construction of madness, we need to understand, here we are not trying to know the history, but here we are also trying to create history, because insanity is precious, insanity is divine. If we say that we are insane people, then definitely we are having some components or qualities or some ingredients through which we can change the world. That's why famous Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore, in one of his songs, he stated, "Amra notun যৌবনের দূত, amra চঞ্চল, amra অদ্ভুত." He was trying to address the young generation, and these people, they are representing the new society, and they are not normal because they are adbhut, they are unusual. So we need to understand these various ideas related to madness and how we can situate madness in the discourses where we can put something from our within, or I may say we can critically think to know madness. So here my emphasis is on certain points that what I would like to discuss with all of you. Number one, the meaning of mental illness. What is mental illness? That I have already discussed. Don't think that all of us are mentally normal. We have mental issues, and as I have discussed, some of them are subtle and some of them are noticeable. Some of us having that kind of capability to hide our mental health issues, and some of us are not that much capable to suppress our emotional outbursts or suppress our upheavals or the sufferings which we face in our everyday life. So, all the time we cannot say that mental health issues are hereditary. These issues are something which we can also get from the societal responses. So, it's a part of the reciprocation to the society, to the economy, to the culture, to the political scenario which we face in our everyday life. So, this is something where I can say the definition of mental illness is very difficult to, to harp on, and here we can keep this open or lucid. The second point is the definition and exploration of the social construction of mental illness. Here I would like to say that yes, we are going to highlight the arguments of various thinkers on mental illness, and from that explanations or from those arguments we can deduct something through which we could be able to find out that whether we can socially construct mental illness with a proper definition. But here also I might say this is something very much subjective and lucid. The third point is sociological theories on mental illness as a social construct. The second and third point both are overlapping with each other. Definitely, whatever we are trying to know from the views of the thinkers, then we might also try to theorize all those ideas with our own insights. The next point is examples of social construction of mental illness, including depression and bipolar disorder. So we need to know that various forms of mental health illnesses are a part of our life, that we can talk on hysteria, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder and all. And by discussing all this, we should try to analyze the reasons behind these issues or these elements, and we should be very much flexible and we should be very much liberal to discuss all these, not with any kind of reservation. Finally, the impact of media on the social construction of mental illness, that how media is responsible to make us feel that we are not well mentally. So, we need to understand how capitalism is making us not only the slaves of our desires, but also we are day by day trying to fulfill our ambitions, and we are getting very much competitive, and this competitive world we are lagging behind emotion and support that is making us mentally unwell. So, we need to understand what is known as disorder. So, it's very much important for us to understand these words like malfunctioning, disorder, problems, abnormal and all, if we would like to understand the social construction of mental illness. And here we find three types of disorders. Number one, disorders of thoughts. That is psychosis, schizophrenia, psychopathy. That when we are thinking something which is not normal, where we are not finding any parity with the thoughts of others, that is making us feel secluded, lonely, isolated. That is called the disorder which we are having in our thoughts, that we are thinking something abnormal. Number two, disorders of emotion, that is depression, anxiety and phobias. Yes, when we are expressing ourselves, that time if we are not following the social norms or how the society wants to see us, that definitely we are facing some mental health issues. We might be phobic, we might be showing some kind of anxiety, and we are depressed. So this is something which also we need to explore to understand the construction of mental illness. And finally, disorders of behavior, that is drug and alcohol dependency. So here I might say that the second and third point both are interrelated. When we are unable to express ourselves properly as how society wants to see us, that makes us feel very much depressed and we have to take the help of drug, alcohol and the other means to feel that we are normal or we are trying to cope up with the situation which is perhaps very much difficult for us to be with. So that is something which is related with the disorders of behavior, that we are not behaving properly and here our emotional problems are making us to behave like that which cannot be accepted as normal according to the so-called normal people of the society. So all these are tending towards some kind of a feeling that mental illness is a social factor. And how to diagnose mental illness? That here we can mention that what Auguste Comte once he told through his theory of positivism, that according to him, through the scientific knowledge, we can only decipher the truth. From that perspective, it can be said that if we want to know the root cause of mental illness, then we are not only trying to know the subjective interpretation of mental illness, but we also need to know the biomedical model of mental illness, like how we can scientifically justify or how we can scientifically situate mental illness or insanity. So here I think like the perspectives from the branches like psychiatry or psychotherapy are very much important to understand this biomedical model which we are trying to derive from the ideas of Auguste Comte. So now I would like to say something about the definition of the social construction of mental illness. Like as I have already mentioned, it's a very subjective matter and here perceptions are not the same. So here we find like how are we aware or sensitized about mental illness. So what the people in United Kingdom, they think mental illness, perhaps the people from the third world countries like Bangladesh, India or Pakistan do not have the same opinion. In our country, we feel like the people with autism or some kind of mental health disorder are not a part of the mainstream society. We have started inclusive education recently, but before that, the kids with learning difficulties were not a part of the education system. But in abroad, these problems, they are tackling with much more efficiency because people are more aware and more sensitized. Now we are having more awareness with regard to the disorders like autism, bipolar disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder and all. But definitely I must say that majority of the people are not that much educated. So we cannot expect that people in the interior villages, they are taking proper care of their kids who are having autism or any kind of mental and physical health disorder like cerebral palsy. So here I find it's very difficult for us to define mental health problems because the society is not the same for all the countries, for all the continents. My next point is like if I would like to know that, as I have already mentioned in the beginning of my lecture, that how the thinkers they thought mental illness. So if I would like to talk about Michel Foucault. So according to Michel Foucault, that mental illness is not something which can be termed as hereditary or natural or something, like which we cannot change. That means which is static. Rather, he wanted to say mental illness originates from the psychosocial factors related to the society and economy. So here we find that Michel Foucault, he wants to give a more human character to this mental illness, where we need to be more empathic rather than we should be very much critical and we should be blaming our fate or destiny because someone in our family or in our neighborhood is having some problems or behaving like not so normal according to the social norms. The next thinker who is definitely trying to give a proper light to this particular topic is Thomas Schaff. He talked on leveling theory, which I have found very much interesting. And in this leveling theory, he wanted to say that we cannot call a person mentally insane because there is something which cannot be defined. When we are leveling people with this kind of stigma or this kind of what I can say category, then we are trying to console ourselves because we are not getting any proper solution or we are not getting any proper answer that how can we situate these people in the society. Just because of our lack of knowledge, our lack of awareness, we are leveling them, and that is known as leveling theory, that we are leveling people with mental illness, but we are not very sure of like whether it is justified or not, because according to Thomas Schaff, that mental illness is something which is very much subjective, and it's not always can be identified or defined with scientific interventions or like with any kind of recognition of people labeling them as insane. Next, I would like to talk on what Thomas Saz he wanted to say. That is also very much interesting. According to him, mental illness is a myth. That means all of us are having mental health issues. So all of us are abnormals. So it's not possible for us to segregate or to differentiate those who are insane. So from that point of view, it's a myth for him. And then I would like to mention what Irving Goffman he said. According to him, we cannot apply biomedical parameters to cure mental health patients. Psychotherapy, hospitalization, all these means are futile to treat mental patients because their problems are society related. And only a better society can give them comfort rather than this kind of scientific and technological innovations like using what I can say medicines or pills or giving them electric shock. So all these are not at all fruitful to help those people who are as per the society having some mental health issues. And he had done his survey in the lunatic asylums to have this kind of idea. I would like to mention from a book by Botch Jacobson, which was published in the year 2009, and it was on making minds and madness from hysteria to depression. So in that particular book, he wanted to say that the construction of mental illnesses are something which have been created by the humans, their popular beliefs, along with the medical diagnosis or investigation or clinical findings. So what I am trying to say, I am repeating that we the humans are sometime responsible for making some behavioral problems as mental health issues or making people believe that these problems are something which are abnormal or they are after all problems if they are not so, if we judge with our rational, and along with what I can say that the scientific and clinical parameters are responsible to farm that particular belief that these are mental illness reasons, or these are the issues related to mental illness. So I would like to say about it, like if I would like to go for bipolar disorder. So what is bipolar disorder? Like that, as it is a mental illness, but if we can see that according to the researchers that perhaps many of us are having bipolar disorder, and one day we might face the epidemic of bipolar disorder. So it's not like something which is only the, what I can say, the biomedical construction, it is something a social construction. And I would like to also know about schizophrenia. So schizophrenia is something which is related with some kind of abnormality if we face in our brain, some kind of chemical malfunctioning. But in some cultures, in some civilizations, it is related with demon or some kind of, evil. So here also we find a social construction of mental illness along with its medical definition. The DSM, what is DSM now I would like to mention. The DSM refers to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which was first published in 1952. Today, it is considered one of the most important manuals for the diagnosing of mental disorders. So we need to know like what are the mental health illnesses included in this DSM, or Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So here we can say like homosexuality, once it was a part of DSM. And people used to think that the people who are having, some kind of an orientation which is not socially accepted, these people are abnormal. And this is something which we can say made the position of LGBTQA community in the society very much marginalized. Because once people used to think these people, they were mad, they were crazy, they were insane. But nowadays, as we are having more new definitions of gender, we are changing our so-called established perceptions on gender. So that is giving us some kind of a knowledge that these LGBTQA people are normal, and homosexuality cannot be termed as insane or, something which is abnormal or a kind of mental disorder or mental illness. So this is something also related with hysteria. Hysteria is a kind of abnormal situation where perhaps we find some kind of chemical malfunctioning of our brain. But in many cultures, hysteria is related with women. Like how women, they are reciprocating towards society, their greed, their desire, their dark beliefs and their dark ambitions. So here we find a feminine construction of a mental illness which is also social, but definitely the scientific reason behind it is also there. So now I would like to say something on media and the social construction of mental illness, because sometimes media makes us feel that we are mentally unstable, because in this world, like everybody is busy and we are all the slaves of capitalism or our materialistic desires. Sometimes we feel lonely, we feel depressed because we have luxury, we have plenty of things through which we could enjoy our earthly life. We have cell phones, we have other means of entertainment. So in this world, if we feel lonely, sometimes we Google to know like what is exactly we are suffering from, and we go for self-medication. This is something which can be termed as how media is making us mentally challenged or how media is making us to feel that we are not mentally stable because we are reading various explanations which are available in media, both printing and electronic. I have given just one example, and we are getting more and more prone to the sleeping pills, antidepressants, and the other ways to combat with our mental problems or mental health issues. Finally, I would like to say how we can deal with mental health issues. WHO considers that we need to take care of our mental health, and according to WHO, that mental health is something which is precious, and we need to make people aware that how they can take care of their mental health and mental well-being. So there are various means through which we can make our mental health healthy. We can check the website of WHO to know how they are giving priority to mental health along with the other important health factors or health issues. So both physical and mental health are important to make ourselves fit and fine and to survive in this world which is very much competitive and exploitative. And these ideas might help the students to enrich in this particular discourse on mental health, that where they could also contribute their ideas so that they could make others sensitize, and also they could be enlightened with the theories starting from Koth to what I can say, I ended with a book which was published in 2009, and where it was stated that mental health or mental illness is something where we can find both subjective and objective explanations, because it is something which is a social construct, as well as we cannot deny what Koth once stated, that only through scientific knowledge we can decipher truth. So scientific interventions are also important to know the dark areas or the grey shades of our mind, as well as to decipher or decode the mental illness or the mental health problems. Here we can have excellent research like history of psychiatry, history of mind, history of psychology, and to know their relevance, and we can also have comparative studies with the present situation. I hope that students, they have liked my lecture today on social construction of mental illness and mental health. Thank you.